My ex returned after 20 years, and looked right through me. Today, I have a story that will stop you in your tracks. Imagine this. It's been 20 years since you last saw the person who once knew your heart better than anyone. And then, one ordinary day, they walk back into your life. But something's different. They don't smile. They don't flinch. They look at you like you're a stranger. That's exactly what happened to me. And what followed left me questioning everything I thought I had healed from. Was it revenge? Was it regret? Or had time simply erased me from their memory? Stay with me, because what unfolded next is something I never saw coming. And you won't either. I was at the bookstore thumbing through a novel I had no intention of buying when the door opened and time stopped. He walked in like a ghost, wearing the skin of someone I used to love. 20 years had passed since he left without a word, leaving me with nothing but questions and a hollow kind of strength. Eyes met. Mine were full of memories. His empty, cold, as if I were a stranger. No flicker of recognition, no trace of the boy I once knew. And in that moment I realized I was not the one who changed. The bookstore had always been my quiet place. It was tucked into a corner of the neighborhood that time seemed to ignore, where the wooden floors still creaked, and the air always carried the faint smell of old paper and roasted coffee from the cafe next door. I had come there for years, finding refuge in fiction when reality became too noisy. That afternoon was no different until he walked in. It had been 20 years, 20 long years since the man who once promised me the world packed up and disappeared from it. No letter, no phone call, no explanation. He had left behind a trail of confusion, heartbreak, and a younger version of me who believed that love was meant to stay. I saw him before he saw me, or maybe he never really saw me at all. He was older now, of course, but the outline of him was unmistakable. His broad shoulders, the slight tilt of his head when he walked, the familiar way his fingers curled when they rested at his side. He was still beautiful, but in a distant, sharper way, like a photograph left too long in the sun, weathered, faded at the edges. My heart stilled in my chest, and my breath caught halfway. I did not know what to expect after all this time. An apology, a look of remorse, surprise, anything. But when our eyes finally met, he blinked once, looked past me, and kept walking, as though I were just another customer, as though I were nothing. I stood there frozen, holding a paperback I no longer registered. I watched him scan a shelf nearby. His face calm, unreadable, detached. It was almost surreal, like watching a dream unfold in reverse. He had once memorized the way I breathed when I slept. Now he could not even confirm the truth. Head aged. A few fine lines, softer eyes, fuller curves. But I was still recognizably the woman he had once held under the moonlight and whispered promises to. And yet to him I was air. I forced myself to move, walking toward the exit with my book in hand. I needed to breathe outside, away from the scent of memories that suddenly flooded the air. But before I reached the door, his voice stopped me. "Excuse me," he said to the cashier, not to me. "Do you have any new releases from Elaine Marshall?" My name, Elaine Marshall. The pen name I had taken up 10 years ago when I began writing romance novels. He was holding one of my books in his hand, his fingers gripping the spine of the very story I had written during the aftermath of our collapse. The irony hit me like a punch to the chest. He did not know. He did not know he was asking for the woman he had abandoned. The woman who had bled between the pages he now skimmed with idle interest. I did not speak. I did not reveal myself. I just watched silently as he paid for my book and thanked the clerk. He walked past me again, eyes brushing over me with the dull vacancy of someone scanning a crowd for a familiar face. But not finding it. The bell above the door jingled and he was gone. And I was still standing in the same spot, holding the past in one hand and the present in the other, neither of them feeling solid. The night after our unexpected reunion, I found myself staring at the ceiling, the hum of the ceiling fan doing little to quiet the storm inside me. I had aged, matured, rebuilt. But in his presence, something inside me had cracked open again. The way he had looked at me, or rather not looked at me, gnawed at the edges of my self-worth. Could not sleep. At around 2 a.m., I wrapped a shawl around my shoulders and walked outside into the soft summer breeze. The street was quiet, a small town's version of silence. My bare feet touched the cool concrete of the porch, grounding me. That was when I heard his voice. "You still do that when you cannot sleep." I turned slowly, my heart thudding against my ribs like it remembered the rhythm of him before my brain could react. He stood at the bottom of the porch steps, his hands buried in his pockets, that same crooked half-smile I used to love tugging at the edge of his lips. This time, though, it felt like a stranger had borrowed his face. "You remembered that?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Some things you do not forget no matter how much time passes." There was a long pause. Neither of us filled it. "Not right away," I finally asked. "Why are you here, Michael? Why now?" He stepped up slowly, each movement deliberate, as if trying not to wake the past. He sat down on the porch bench beside me, but kept just enough space between us, not out of politeness but caution. "I thought I could see you and feel nothing," he said, eyes fixed on the dark street ahead. "But I saw you, and it was like time folded in on itself." I laughed, bitter and breathless. "Then why did you look right through me yesterday? Like I was invisible?" He looked at me now. Really looked. And I hated how much that still mattered to me because I was terrified. He admitted, "I did not expect to feel so much." I did not know what to say. "You have built a life. I did not want to wreck it with memories." "You already wrecked me once, Michael. You should have said something." "Anything." His eyes softened and his voice cracked. "No. I'm sorry, but I came back because there is something you deserve to know." Tensed. "What?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded letter. Old, creased at the edges as if handled too many times. "I wrote this to you 19 years ago. I never sent it." I stared at it, my hands unmoving. "I cannot read that," I whispered. "You should." He placed it on the bench between us and stood. "I will leave you with it. I am staying at the old inn by the lake. If you want talk, I am there." And then he walked away again, but this time he left something behind. I stared at the letter for what felt like an hour before I picked it up with trembling hands. The handwriting was his. Familiar, painfully so. "Elena, I was a coward. I left not because I stopped loving you but because I did not know how to be what you needed. You deserved more than a man still fighting his own demons. When I saw you sleeping beside me, peaceful and trusting, I felt like a fraud. I thought if I walked away, I would be saving you. But I realize now I only broke you to protect my own fear. Not a day has gone by when I did not think of you. Not as a ghost, but as a heartbeat I still carry. I hope you find someone who treats you better. But selfishly, I hope you never forget me, Michael." I read it twice. Then a third time. Undid me. The next day I went to the lake. He was sitting on the edge of the dock, legs dangling, looking out over the water like it could carry away the years. He turned when he heard my steps. "You read it." He nodded. "You should have sent it." "No." Silence fell again. Not heavy this time but charged with something else. "I did forget you," I said finally. "For a long time I forced myself to. Moved on. I raised a daughter. Built a home. But reading that letter brought it all back and I hated you for it." He nodded slowly. "You have every right." But I added, "I also realized something else. You broke me then. But you do not have that power now." He looked startled but not offended. "I needed to hear that," he said. "Because I did not come back to reclaim you. I came back to release something that had been poisoning me for years." "And what was that?" "Yes. The idea that we were unfinished," he whispered. My chest ached, not with longing but with closure. We sat there until the sun dipped low, neither of us speaking again. I could not tell if I was saying goodbye for the last time or forgiving a wound that had festered too long. Maybe both. Maybe that was enough. That evening, after returning from the lake, I sat in my room surrounded by silence. The air felt heavier not with pain but with something else. The weight of truths finally spoken. I stared at my reflection in the mirror and saw someone I had not fully acknowledged in years. A woman who had loved deeply. a woman who had been left. And yet somehow a woman who had rebuilt. I touched my face, tracing the fine lines that time had etched without apology. There was no hiding from age, no erasing the 20 years that had passed. But for the first time in a long time I saw beauty in those lines. They were reminders of survival, of growth, of resilience. Still, part of me was not at peace. That night, I called my daughter just to hear her voice. She was away at college, thriving in her own life. "Are you okay, Mom?" she asked, catching something in my tone I had tried to mask. "I am processing a few things," I said carefully. There was a pause. Then she asked, "Did something happen with him?" My breath caught. "How do you know?" "I saw the way you looked when you mentioned his name last week. Like something you had buried came loose." I smiled faintly. My daughter, wiser than I often gave her credit for. "He came back," I admitted out of nowhere, "and it has brought up more than I expected. Do you still love him?" That question sat in the silence like a confession neither of us wanted to claim. "I do not know," I whispered. "Maybe not him. Maybe the version of him I built in my head when he left. The man I needed him to be." She exhaled softly. "Closure can feel like heartbreak, Mom. But sometimes it is the only way to breathe again." I wiped a tear from my cheek. "Thank you." After we ended the call, I stood by the window, looking out at the darkened sky, stars flickering like secrets too far to reach. I was not in love with Michael anymore. I was in love with the memory of who I was when he loved me. And that difference changed everything. The next day, I saw him at the grocery store. Small towns never let you disappear completely. He was in the produce aisle holding a peach, examining it like it held all the answers he had come searching for. He noticed me and froze, the peach still in his hand. I walked over slowly. We stood there surrounded by fruit and fluorescent lighting, and yet something about the moment felt strangely sacred. "Hi," I said. "Hi," he replied, softer than I had ever heard him. "Do you remember?" I said, "the first time we came to this store together." He smiled. "You kept trying to teach me how to pick a ripe avocado, and you kept choosing the worst ones on purpose just to make me laugh." He laughed now. The sound different but still warm. I had forgotten that. I had not. I said. There was a pause. Not awkward, just honest. "I never knew how much I hurt you," he said finally. "I thought leaving quietly would be easier for you." I shook my head. "You made a decision for me. That is what hurt. Not the leaving, but the fact that you never gave me the choice to stay and fight with you." He nodded slowly, shame flickering across his features. "I did not come back hoping to fix us," he said. "I came back because I needed to face the ghost of what I left behind." "And what do you see now?" "Yes." He looked directly at me. "A woman who became more than I ever deserved." I smiled, not out of vanity but out of clarity. "I am not yours to deserve or not anymore," I said. "I am mine. I have been for a long time." There was something freeing in saying it out loud, not to wound him, but to reclaim myself. We parted ways with a quiet nod. No promises, no plans, just peace. Weeks passed. The echo of Michael's return softened like a storm that had raged and moved on, leaving the sky clearer than before. Life resumed its quiet rhythm. Work, evening walks, video calls with my daughter, and long unhurried mornings where I finally started choosing myself without guilt. One afternoon I found the old photo album we once made, a dusty leather-bound book tucked away behind tax records and forgotten birthday cards. I flipped through it slowly. There we were, young, laughing, full of plans. But I no longer felt that hollow ache in my chest when I looked at us. Instead I smiled. Not because I wanted it back, but because it happened, because I had loved, because I had lost. And still I had lived. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window, and watched the moon rise over the trees. My phone buzzed. A message from Michael. "Thank you for your honesty and for letting me see the woman you became." I stared at the words, then placed the phone face down. No reply was needed. Some stories are not meant to be reopened, just respectfully closed. I leaned back, wrapped in a warmth that had nothing to do with memory and everything to do with peace. I was not waiting anymore. I was no longer haunted. I had come home to myself. And this time I would not leave. And that was it. After 20 years, all I got was a glance that felt colder than goodbye. But maybe that's the cruel truth about time. It doesn't just change faces, it rewrites emotions, buries memories, and sometimes turns deep love into distant silence. But here's the question I still can't answer. Was he pretending not to know me? Or did he truly forget everything we ever were? Some people say closure comes with time. Others say you have to find it yourself. But what if closure never really comes, and you're just left staring at someone who once made your world spin, now acting like you never existed? Would you confront them, stay silent, or walk away with your dignity, even if your heart still aches? This story isn't just about a lost love. It's about identity, pain, and the ghosts of our past that never quite leave us alone. So what do you think? Was he cold-hearted? Or was I just a chapter he'd already closed? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear what you would have done. Follow me so I have more motivation to create powerful videos like this. Or simply encourage me by pressing number 1. Your support truly means everything.